Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our great event for this afternoon. It's a celebration, and we are going to celebrate the establishment of the Peter and Laurie Weinberger Professorship in Cancer Research and the appointment of Gary Schwartz as its inaugural holder. As you know, Gary is also the director of the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center, which I am proud to say, in case you somehow haven't heard, is one of the best in the country. He is also the Vice Dean for Oncology at the School of Medicine. And thank you, Gary, for your leadership of the Cancer Center and for all you do to advance the excellent research and teaching that is the hallmark of this university. Before we begin in earnest, I want to acknowledge a few special guests who have joined us today. First is University Trustee Jenny Barbado. Jenny, thank you for your support and service to Case Western Reserve University. We are also scheduled to welcome Dan Simon, although I did not see Dan. There he is. How can I not see you? You're right in front of me. I'm sorry. He is a professor of medicine and senior associate dean for academic affairs at the School of Medicine. In addition, Dan is the president of academic and external affairs and the chief scientific officer for university hospitals. Dan, welcome. We're also joined by Ted Teknos, a clinical professor at the School of Medicine. Ted is also president of the University Hospital Seidman Cancer Center and the deputy director for University Hospital's Case Comprehensive Cancer Center. So Dan and Ted, we appreciate your leadership and the partnership of university hospitals with us in the Cancer Center. Finally, we welcome Pete and Laurie Weinberger, who have so generously supported this new professorship in their names. Pete is the chair of the Cancer Council and the executive council for the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center. In this role, he is an exceptional advocate for the center and its research. And in fact, he has made it his personal mission to ensure that the good work that we do here is publicized far and wide, and we're grateful, Pete, for your doing that. Pete and Laurie have a long history of philanthropy with the university, and we're grateful for their generosity to the School of Law, of which Pete is an alumnus, and the Cancer Center's Innovation Fund. And importantly, since 2014, they have hosted an annual event for the Cancer Center in Naples, Florida, in the winter. We appreciate their willingness to support this event for many reasons, not the least of which is the opportunity for some of us to visit Naples in January or February. So Pete, thank you for your leadership of the council, and to both of you, thank you for the gift that has made this professorship possible. I should mention that Pete and Laurie are joined today by several family members, including their son Adam and their daughter Kelly. We're so pleased that you both can be here with your parents, and that all of the members of the family who are here today were indeed able to come and celebrate. So now, please join me in welcoming Pete and Laurie to the podium.
Thank you, President Kaler. Laurie and I want to share the honor of making this gift with our family who are here. You've already heard that our son Adam and our daughter Kelly are here. Adam's from Rye, New York, where he left his two children and his wife. They're in good hands, I think. And Kelly is from Boston, Massachusetts, where she left Rob, her husband, and her two children. We're so pleased and proud of them that they are here. We love them very much. The reason that I have my siblings here, I know it's hard to tell whether we're really brothers, right? is that we share a deep connection with Case Western Reserve and its community. My brother Tom, give it a little wave, is it 1966, right?
Yes, but I'm not acknowledging.
Graduate of Case Western Reserve University. And he's here with his wife, Leslie, and they flew in yesterday from Los Angeles, and we're so pleased and honored that they are here with us. My brother Dick, a recently retired family physician, and his wife Donna are here with us. And Dick was in the first family residency program at University Hospital's Case Medical School a few years ago. And he has been a practicing family doctor who we are very proud of course. And he recently retired, which is why he has a big smile on his face. Laurie's brother, Lou, Dr. Louis Novak, is like a brother to me and to the rest of us. And he is a graduate of Case Western Reserve Medical School. He did his residency in radiology at a time when you couldn't do a residency in radiation oncology, but he has been recently retired from a long career as a radiation oncologist at university hospitals, and we are so proud of what he has done for our medical community. Missing tonight is my brother Bill, who happens to be Dick's twin. He couldn't make it in from Los Angeles because he is a Superior Court judge, recently appointed by the governor about 3 years ago. And at least there's one person in this audience who will understand the burdens of a heavy docket. And so Bill could not be here tonight. I also want to recognize, in addition to my family, a couple of colleagues in the law. The Spangenberg firm, where I've practiced for the last 38 years, has existed for more than 80 years and is committed to obtaining justice for injured victims and their families. Here today are two of my law partners, Bill Howell. Bill, you want to stand? And Peter Broadhead. And we also have our firm's COO, Uzma Ahmed. Uzma, where are you? Would you stand? And last but not least, my cherished longtime assistant, Sheila Shevik. Sheila? Without the support and success of my partners and my law firm, we would not have been in the position to make the gift that we make today. And so we are honored to have my colleagues from the firm here to celebrate with us. There are a number of other partners in the firm who couldn't be here, but I know they're thinking about us today. I also want to recognize U.S. District Judge Dan Polster. Judge Polster, would you stand? And Judge Polster has a close connection to Case Western Reserve and its law school. He has been a long-time volunteer at the law school. And for the last 8 years, I've had the privilege of practicing before Judge Polster as he handled the sprawling nationwide opioid litigation that's been so important for our country, involving abating the horrendous opiate epidemic that we've suffered from. In that role, he has exercised judicial independence and superior judicial intellect and temperament. He has a kind of a connection to the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center in that he and Dr. Stan Gerson went to Harvard College together. We won't hold that against them. But I know that Stan and Judge Polster have had a long-standing relationship, and I know how much they respect each other, and it's great to have you here, Judge Polster, with us. Finally, I want to recognize David Cohn, a 1986 Case Law School grad and a nationally prominent special master in federal multi-district litigation, who has worked side by side with Judge Polster in the opioid case. David, would you stand? Thanks for being here, David. So why did Laurie and I endow this professorship in cancer research? Well, about 16 years ago, the head of dermatology, Kevin Cooper, and I thought he was going to be with us. Kevin, are you here? Well, maybe he'll show up later. Well, anyway, Kevin was the head of the Department of Dermatology. I had a little problem with a melanoma back about 16 or 17 years ago, and he introduced me to the concept of an advisory council for skin cancer research. And so I became involved in that advisory council. And that Skin Cancer Advisory Council then morphed into the Advisory Council for the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center, which I've had the honor of chairing for a number of years. In that role, I've gotten to know Dr. Stan Gerson, a nationally respected leader, expert, clinician, and educator in cancer research. I have experienced Dr. Gerson up close and personal as he has cared for family members and for friends, and as he has led the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center team of more than 400 researchers from Case Medical School, from the Cleveland Clinic, and from university hospitals. He is an extraordinary mentor to so many, and his career has exemplified collaboration and commitment to the cause of cancer research. His reputation is what has driven the reputation of the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center and its excellence. Now, I certainly am not aware of every decision that Dr. Gerson has made over his career. I can only observe from my perspective that the best professional decision that I've witnessed Stan make has been to recruit Dr. Gary Schwartz from Columbia. In the last 2.5 years, Gary has demonstrated his excellent leadership skills and his passion for cancer research and for the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center. He is a worthy successor to Stan Gerson, and most recently led the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center to receive the NIH NCI highest rating of excellence, placing our center into the top-rated 5% of all comprehensive cancer centers in our country. That is no small task, and it is because of his leadership and because of the excellent researchers that we have at the Cancer Center. Stan and Gary and more than 400 researchers are what stimulated our gift. We are honored to make the gift and for this recognition, and we in particular want to thank the development staff, Christy Short, Tamara Mora, and Kate Bain in particular, for mentoring us through this process. And we thank all of you for your good wishes. Thank you.
So thank you, Pete and Laurie. We greatly appreciate your commitment to cancer research and your support of the School of Medicine with this very generous gift. And as a token of our appreciation, we have a very small chair. And it comes in 2 pieces. So it's been locked in a previous ceremony. So it's engraved with your name and the date.
Beautiful.
And with gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now please welcome Stan Gerson, the Dean of the School of Medicine and the Senior Vice President for Medical Affairs. Stan, please.
Good afternoon, and thank you, President Kaler, for your comments, and for Pete and Laurie for your incredible generosity and your extensive comments as well. After all, you're what makes this celebration today possible. Your leadership of the Case Cancer Council has been just remarkable, and the broadening of the engagement across the community, both here in Naples and elsewhere, has been remarkable to the success and recognition that we have. Now, Ted Technos and Dan Simon are here, and I remember one of the first questions that Pete asked me when he came on to the Case Cancer Council, and that was, why do we need another cancer center? Because at that time, 15 years ago or so, the prominent entities were based at the two hospitals, and the concept of an NCI-designated cancer center was somehow down the ladder, if you will. And I think today we've equalized that and recognized the incredible partnership that we have across the city of Cleveland to the benefit of the city of Cleveland. Now, I'm glad to see members of your law firm here with us, because they'll understand that when I got to know Pete, he always had a smile on his face. And it's an incredibly disarming smile until he starts asking the questions that he really has up his sleeve that you better listen to because you got to get them right, like, why do we need another cancer center? So I appreciate that, and I've learned, and Gary, my advice to you is listen carefully to those smiley questions, because they're going to come and get you otherwise. So why are professorships so important to a school of medicine? So I'm going to give you a little bit of background on that, if I could. And first, we are delighted to be able to honor Gary Schwartz here today, but he represents one of, as of today, 126 endowed professorships of the School of Medicine. We are blessed with decades and decades of strong supporters for our programs and for our best and our brightest faculty. And we're incredibly benefited by the fact that we can even offer some endowed professorships to our up and rising stars to help them stay here in Cleveland. So they really help us stabilize our faculty, encourage innovation, scholarship, independence of thought. And it really comes together to help us with our entire mission for the School of Medicine, which is to improve health globally by linking research and innovation to patients and populations in an absolutely superb educational environment, again, with our entire colleagues across the city. The concept of professorships dates back 5 centuries. And it's hard to believe, but think 5 centuries ahead what the transformation will be over decades and centuries for this newest endowed professorship. The first was actually the Regius Chair of Civic Law at Oxford University, bestowed by King Henry VIII in 1540. That corpus has been divided into 6 professorships now, one of which, thanks to the alert that I received from Dan Simon, has a Cleveland connection, because most recently Sir John Bell served as the Regius Professor of Medicine at Oxford, and he helped consummate the deal between University Hospitals, Harrington Discovery Institute, and Oxford University. So we actually have a connection with the oldest endowed professorship that exists. Our oldest chairs are from the Hanna and Payne families, with 3 chairs between 1901 and 1906. They're currently held by Ann Harris in genetics, recruited by Tony Winshaw-Boris, Agatha Exner in radiology and biomedical engineering. And I note that as dean, I've been able to bestow 49 endowed professorships under my tenure, 47% of which have been our most prestigious women faculty. And the final Hannah Payne Professorship was held by the late Nate Berger, who was the founding director of our Comprehensive Cancer Center. So it's fitting to follow in the footsteps of Nate Berger to introduce Gary Schwartz as the inaugural Peter and Laurie Weinberger Professor of Cancer Research. Now, the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center, as Pete noted, is one of just 60 NCI-designated cancer centers. And with Dr. Schwartz's leadership, we have just been renewed with one of the highest rankings and one of the few centers around the country that's been extended in our interval period for review to 7 years from 5 years. You can do the math. It both means less work on our part in renewal, and a heck of a lot more stability of our financial support from the National Cancer Institute. Now, we couldn't do this alone, so we obviously partner with our researchers and clinicians at university hospitals and the Cleveland Clinic, and you'll hear the passion that Pete mentioned that Dr. Schwartz has in really taking basic discovery in cancer and thinking about the therapeutic impact that that would have on our patients, especially those with rare cancers. I was thrilled when I contacted Dr. Schwartz in 2022 and suggested he think about becoming a cancer center director. And we typically in the academic world danced around for about 6 to 8 months, got our consortium partners to agree, and got him here in January of 2023, just in time to start renewing our application, which normally NCI directors have about 2 or 3 years to do. And he's put together an incredible coordinated effort, well recognized by the National Cancer Institute. So Dr. Schwartz had been the chief of hematology oncology at Columbia University and their deputy director of the Herbert Irving Columbia Comprehensive Cancer Center, so well-versed in cancer centers. For 30 years, he's been involved in GI cancers, melanoma, and sarcoma, was the former chief of the melanoma and sarcoma service at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, one of our peers, I would note. He's internationally recognized for his interest in drug discovery, immunotherapy, and in the study of rare cancers. He's been a co-chair of the Experimental Therapeutics in Rare Cancer Committee for the National Cancer Institute National Consortium called the Alliance. And he is one of the inaugural members of something called NEXT at the NCI, which is the National Cancer Institute's program to review new therapeutics through the National Cancer Institute. He's an absolute passionate leader, inspires others and colleagues, and makes sure that they help him collectively go the extra mile. So it is most deserving that we bring the pride of the Comprehensive Cancer Center, the School of Medicine, and the university to Dr. Gary Schwartz. Dr. Schwartz, your stage.
Well, thank you so much, Stan, and thank you so much for those kind remarks, and thank you for this amazing turnout this afternoon. I see lots of friends in the audience. And of course, thank you for Peter and Laurie Weinberger. This is an amazing honor. I am so humbled to step into the first chair of the Peter and Laurie Weinberger Professorship in Oncology. It means so much to me. I've had a chance to get to know Laurie and Peter over the last 2 years. I've visited them in their wonderful home in Naples. We had a great dinner at your club. I don't play golf, but I got to see the golf course and all the holes. And Peter is the head of our executive council and has been a major force in helping us promote the cancer program. I see some cancer council members, Linda Licko and Patty Pofo out there. But together we have made an amazing effort to raise awareness of what we do in cancer medicine in Cleveland, what we do to raise the quality of cancer medicine, cancer research. It's really under Peter's leadership that this has all come about. And of course, we are looking to raise our stature and our funding as well in the process. So again, I'm absolutely honored. I've seen 30 years of medical cancer therapy. I mean, I'm going to talk a little bit about, in the next 10 or so minutes, my own personal odyssey, how I got here today, and share with you my experience of how we've transformed cancer medicine in such a way from 5 cancer drugs, which was what I was involved with at the very beginning, to drugs that now activate the immune system, that we precisely define cancer by looking at the DNA of the cell and developing and identifying drugs that actually target the cancer cell specifically. It's been an awesome ride for me, and I just want to share with you some of my experience. Try this. Oh, there we are. So in the beginning, there's always a beginning, right? Now, I'm not showing you the true beginning. I'm not showing you when I'm an infant, okay? I'm going to jump ahead to my parents. And you can't really tell my story without my parents. Now, my father, Mort Schwartz, is in this far right slide, on your left. And he actually was a cancer scientist. So in 1953, he had an idea. Could he test in the blood a protein that would detect cancer. No one had ever thought about that before. Could we actually measure proteins in the blood and tumor to follow the course of a patient's cancer by a simple blood test? So in 1953, he published this seminal paper. It was a breakthrough. He developed a method for something called acid phosphatase. It preceded PSA for patients with prostate cancer. Now look at that co-title. The second author is Isaac Asimov. That's not a mistake. He worked as a postdoc in Isaac Asimov's lab. Isaac had a message. Science fiction today, science fact tomorrow. Think big, use imagination, be creative. The message he conveyed to me throughout my whole life. That's a picture of him in front of a machine. Not only was he a chemist and a scientist, he actually developed some of the first methods to measure elements, electrolytes in the blood. We take it for granted today. We go to your doctor's office, you take a tube of blood, they measure sodium, potassium, chloride. He actually engineered the first machines. That's one of the first machines that measured 6 elements in the blood. It's called the SMA-6. He created that machine as well. Now, my mom was a research, actually a nurse, surgical nurse at Memorial Sloan Kettering. And my father, of course, gave up his MD. He was on the first 6-year MD, PhD at BU. He didn't like blood, okay? He focused on the science. In those days, you couldn't do anything on cancer anyhow as a physician. He gave up his MD, so he needed someone to work with him to draw the blood work. So my mom came as research nurse, and they published copiously. And you can see this paper they published actually on PSA, dealing Moore and Schwartz. That was the team. In fact, this paper is interesting because he felt that what was better, his initial tests, that prostate acid phosphatase, or the PSA test. Actually, the PSA test was better, but he was the type of person that would test his own theories against the new standard. He was always looking for the next thing. So you can imagine what dinner table conversations were like. Okay, this wasn't just talking about how was the day, Gary. I mean, at the end of the day, they bring home their laboratory stuff. And my mom had her 5x4 cards on every patient in clinical trials. There was no spreadsheets. I mean, we'd have a table full of these cards. Forget HIPAA. They would measure the blood. They'd take the charts and they graph all the stuff with paper and pencil. And that was discovery. That was the way it was done. But it was really interesting for me to see this transition. And you can imagine the impact on a young man becoming eventually a cancer researcher and developing new therapies himself. Those are my parents. Now, this isn't working. So I eventually did join them for at least a summer. This is me in Memorial Sloan Kettering when I was a sophomore in college. Those are my parents now, and there I am. It was a celebratory event. Always my father found a chance to celebrate something at the lab, I found. It was a champagne event, and there I am. And actually, I published that summer my first paper looking at lymphocytes. These are the immune cells. This is before even thinking about immune activation. And looking at how we can separate lymphocytes by different methods that I work with this guy, being Bronstein of Milan and chairman of pathology at Memorial. And that was my first publication. It was a hard summer. Well, then I went from Memorial to Mount Sinai. People, what happened to Memorial? Like I was supposed to be Memorial as a fellow. It was like given that Memorial. So it was a decision that I wasn't quite, can't take ownership of. But the chairman of the fellowship program at Memorial is a guy named Barney Clarkson. That's Clarkson University, the one, his family owned the university. So he made a decision that I should go my fellowship at a Memorial. He made this decision that if I say to Memorial, it wouldn't look good, that I had to go elsewhere to really prove myself and then come back. Now imagine this. I had always envisioned to be a fellow there, and I was crushed. So I accepted it. I said, okay, maybe he's right. And in fact, it was probably the most important decision of my career. Because leaving Memorial, I was able to leave the umbrella of my parents and go out and prove myself that I could do it on my own. I didn't need the Schwartz name at Memorial to become a great physician scientist, or at least lead the field today. So I met this guy, Jim Holland. He was the head of the cancer program at Mount Sinai. Jim was a curmudgeon. He was a brilliant curmudgeon. But he allowed me to do things that no one else would do before. So I met him at a fellowship. I interviewed with him. And I had this idea. I said, Jim, I know you're really good at drug therapy, but I think there's something better than just drugs. I think we have to look at the cell. We have to look at the pathways. We have to look at the proteins that make a cancer cell grow. And can we drug them? So he said, well, let's try to be a fellow first, and we'll come back to the discussion later. But sure enough, he let me develop a whole program at Mount Sinai as a fellow. I spent 2 years in the laboratory targeting a new protein called protein kinase C. And I've published this really seminal paper about targeting a protein to make a chemotherapy drug more active. And it was really the beginning of developing models to target proteins in a cancer cell that could enhance a cancer therapy. And this is the first paper that published on that and opened up a whole new field in drug discovery and drug development. And at Mount Sinai, I'm a young investigator here, getting my award from Jim Holland for this early work in cancer discovery. Well then, a lot of things happened in one life, and when I was a fellow, of course, I met my wife. I met her as a resident at North Shore Hospital. It was an interesting story. I was looking for a football game. As a resident, you don't have time for watching TV. In those days, there was no cell phones. You couldn't flip a phone up and see what was playing at the score. The only TV set was in the OBGYN suite, and she's an obstetrician gynecologist, so I had to find the suite. I went in the room, 2 o'clock in the morning, or it must be 11 o'clock at the end of the game, and of course the TV set's on, and there's only one person in front of the TV set. It's kind of young, my wife. And of course, I was looking for the game. I never watched the game, and we had a nice conversation. It took me a little time to date her because I was so intimidated by her. But eventually, we did get married, and here it was during my fellowship. It was one of those major events in one's life. So memorial, I made it back, okay? It was actually interesting. So Dave Kelson, he was a grand round speaker at Mount Sinai, and he says to me, I'm hearing about all this work you're doing in signaling pathways. Want to come to Memorial? I said, oh, maybe. And he says, I'm doing gastric cancer research. I don't do gastric cancer research. I do breast cancer research, I do leukemia research. No. I've got these cells. I'm sure that protein kinase C is in the cells. I want you to come to Memorial. I'll give you a lab, a little startup. Do it there. So I said, fine. And that wasn't initially, it took me a little time. I went to Jim Holland. I said, listen, Jim, I got this great offer to go to Memorial. I want to stay at Mount Sinai. He says, Gary, I can't offer you the same package at Memorial. They're going to give me a startup. You should go. Actually, was the best, honestly, he was honest with me, and that was great about Jim. And I have to say, he was really a historic, amazing individual, and helped me guide my career all those years at Mount Sinai. Now, I went to George Basel. I remember my first interview with George Basel. He was a chairman of medicine, and I told him about the story about this. I'm going to target cells, and I'm going to change therapy. He says, Gary, just focus on chemotherapy. Really, that all this stuff is too much fantasy. And then David Spriggs, he was my supporter. He was always behind me, telling me never give up, always persist. And he was actually critical and advised me when I should leave Memorial. So this is actually my first paper looking at a drug called Savangol. It was a PKC inhibitor, and what I show you here is either gastric cancer cells. I definitely moved to gastric cancer. And what I'm showing here is the ability of a drug, Savangol, by itself, these are gastric cancer cells. Mitomycin C, I'm showing you the effect. But what I'm showing here is cells that undergo a process called apoptosis. Now, in 1995, we just didn't even know how cancer cells died. We just had to really discover the processes of how a cancer cell died. We didn't really know. How do they do it? So this is a process called apoptosis. It's a process of cell death. We know all the details about it. And we combine the PKC inhibitor with the chemotherapy. All these cells, many of them shown here under those points, those really bright dots, are apoptotic cells. So the idea then was reinforced. Could we block PKC, give chemotherapy, and enhance cancer cell death? And eventually, because of my success, they gave me a lab. Here I am on my lab looking under a flask. And a lot of my work at the time was done with Monica Mantwani. She was my research postdoc, and I'm looking at a blot here. And then I switched from Savangol to another drug called flavopiridol. I spent probably 15 years studying this drug. This was the next big PKC inhibitor, but it turned out it didn't just inhibit PKC, it inhibited a bunch of other kinases called cyclin-dependent kinases, which are involved in the cell cycle. The target's not important, but what it did was extraordinary. And this actually from a paper we published in a Memorial. On the top is the drug effects of chemotherapy on a colon cancer. These are tumor-bearing mice. When we gave flavopiridol after the chemotherapy, this drug's called irinotecan, is used in colon cancer today. The cells were just destroyed. The tumors were destroyed. We cured colon cancer in mice. It was unbelievable and expected by the model, but it showed that if you take a drug that blocks a pathway and you can make a chemotherapy agent more effective. Now, we took this to multiple clinical trials, and I led these. This is one of my former fellows, Dr. Fournier. On your left is a patient with metastatic breast cancer, and you can see that's a liver metastasis in the liver, that spot. And on chemotherapy, she'd already failed chemotherapy. There was a major response. And I forgot about this patient with pancreas cancer. This patient with nodal metastases at the PET scan, all those bright little spots in the center of nodal disease. And after chemotherapy with my combination of flavopiridine and taxotere, there was a complete remission. So we thought we were onto something really amazing. Well, so did Memorial Sloan Kettering. 10 years later, I got covered on their, if you got into the cancer centers at Memorial, you finally made it. I remember after this came out, George Boswell, the guy said, you know, follow chemotherapy, comes up to me and says, Gary, you're right. You stuck your guns, and look, here's your success. On that topic, actually, there's Jed Walchuk, who went on to great therapy with immunotherapy with Jim Allison, and a guy named, and the middle fellow there is also involved in the CAR Ts. But that was me in the picture there. So then what happened was I got another call from George. George is always in the background. Okay, George at the beginning saying, forget about, targets, do chemotherapy, admitting I was probably right from the beginning. I get called in his office, said, Gary, you're making a new service, melanoma sarcoma. I said, George, I don't do melanoma. I don't treat melanoma. I can recognize it, I think, and I get a little sarcoma, but he says, no, it's perfect for you, Gary. We got targets. There's a target in melanoma called BRAF. It's perfect for you. And there's these immune cells. This guy named Allison, right? Jim Allison is going to get the Nobel Prize eventually. He says, on the T cell, there are proteins that turn on the T cell. Why don't you target these drugs? It's perfect for you. I said, George, okay. So I said, fine. I gave it. I said, it was a great step up. Of course, I remember my first meetings with the melanoma guys. They weren't happy with me. They thought they should be the chief. The sarcoma guys accepted it. It was tough the first year, but eventually they learned to accept me because I had this vision. Forget the chemotherapies, they're not working. We gotta think bigger, we gotta target proteins, we gotta think about new targets. One of the targets was actually with this one here, just to summarize, this was a target in melanoma. It's a rare form of melanoma called acral melanoma. It's under the nail beds. It's actually a man here has a melanoma under his nail. You can see it here. I'm not showing this right. There it is under the nail bed. And he had melanoma going up his leg. He had a mutation. So the precision medicine, here it is. We sequenced this man's DNA and found a gene mutation in a gene called KIT. Now, I knew that gene from GIST, gastrointestinal stromal tumors, a sarcoma. Same gene, but different disease. So I said, why don't we try this drug in this man's acral melanoma? And sure enough, we gave him these pills, and that's the KIT mutation. And within a couple weeks, all those little nodules you can see on this PET scan are going away. And within 2 months, they're gone completely. In fact, we saw this hyperpigmentation, a little brown color in the skin. We thought maybe it was still melanoma. We biopsied it. It was just the melanin pigment. There was no tumor cell left behind. This person was cured. It's cured today. And it was a discovery using the precision medicine with a targeted drug in a disease that was considered untreatable at the time. Well, then after Memorial, I eventually went to Columbia. I was chief of hematology oncology. My transition to Memorial was, there were several reasons for it. One, it was an opportunity. There was a director there named Stephen Emerson, who was actually a Haverford College graduate where I came from. But Columbia Memorial was going through some tough times at that point. There were some issues on different things, and I felt it was time to leave. And I focused on rare cancers. Dr. Gerson mentioned this, and sarcoma. Here's actually a study I did with combination of a drug that blocks a protein called PARP and combination chemotherapy. These are patients with metastatic sarcoma and these big masses. This is a woman who had failed everything. Here's a big tumor in her scalp, and then here it is going away. Big tumor in the pelvis, going away. And this was sort of considered a major breakthrough for women with uterine leiomyosarcoma. So anyhow, that's where I came. And then as Stan said, in 2023, I got the call from Dr. Gerson. It wasn't really planning to come to Case, but frankly, it was huge. It was important because we just moved. We had a house. We'd sold it in New York. We were looking for an apartment. I get a call from Stan. I said, "I'm looking to live in New York." He says, "No. You got to come to Cleveland." I've never been to Cleveland. Okay, you come from New York. You go to Chicago. You don't stop in Cleveland. It's true. Okay, it's not in your itinerary. Let's looking for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But that call from Stan was the best thing that ever happened in my life, honest to God. Because I came here in February. Now, he made it a challenge. He said, here, we got this grant. He said, it's easy, Gary. Just take the old grant and cut and paste. It's not cut and paste, Dr. Gerson, okay? This is a mega. So I took the grant, because I opened up, 50% of the people are gone. The programs are all changed. And sure enough, we got this grant going, and I came in February. By March, we started the process, and here's the whole timeline. We submitted it, as Stan said, we got this amazing, outstanding ranking, exceptional, high-quality science, translation of clinical trials. I mean, we achieved something that very few cancer centers ever achieve, ever. And it's great to be part of that process. And of course, I am following a legacy. Okay, here's Stan. Here's Dr. Berger and Jane Wilson, who followed Dr. Berger, and I am really standing on the shoulders of giants. It is an extraordinary thing that I'm here doing this today and being part of this grand legacy in cancer medicine. I've been actively involved in community engagement. This is different things I've been involved with, talking to church leaders, talking to different members of our educational community. Finally, the barbershop, we were very much involved in trying to detect prostate cancer among young men in our underserved community. I was about to get a haircut there. Almost came off that way. And then finally, I'm involved in running and being involved in melanoma protection and prevention. One minute, my wife and I said, Gary, she said to me, what are you doing in the laboratory? Do you still have time? That was this morning's breakfast discussion. I am in the lab still. And one of the things we've been working on is how to change treatment for people with rare cancers. One of the cancers I will focus on is called Ewing sarcoma. It's a very deadly disease. It's a sarcoma in young people. It's driven by a particular protein, a target, that combines two different genes. One's called EWS and one's called FLA1. So what happens is there's a machine called the spliceosome. And this machine is like a sewing machine. It takes two genes and sticks them together. Here's EWS, here's FLA1. Okay? When that happens in the tumor cell, it forms this cancer called Ewing sarcoma. And when that happens, it is a lethal event. Unless you have chemotherapy, it's not going to be very effective. So the idea, can we develop a drug that blocks the spliceosome and prevents these genes from forming, prevents this merger? And that's called this drug Citravant, and it basically blocks the process. And does it cause cancer cell death? And yes, it does. Here's our work out of our laboratory. This is the effect of Citravant. These are cancer Ewing cells growing on a plate. We give the drug in very low concentrations, and it just obliterates the cells. Not even apoptosis, it just knocks them out. And does it affect Ewing's WFLI1? This is just the only, so that's EWFLI1 on a blot. When you run a gel, it forms a band, the DNA. And what it does is that if you look across, it's difficult to maybe fully appreciate, but that completely suppresses EWFLI1. So we have the first way in drug therapy to actually prevent the expression of EWFLI1. This has never been done before. It cures Ewing sarcoma in mice. And we're about to run the first clinical trial in the country. This drug has been given breakthrough status by the NCI, and we're going to be the major site. It's being run by one of our junior faculty, Dr. Van Heist, and we will be the one of several sites in the country leading it at a case based on this laboratory data. We presented this data at ACER just a few months ago. So it's not just me. I sit in the middle of an amazing family. Okay, here we are. This is my kids when they were young, Brian and Catherine, with my parents when they were still alive, with Connie. And of course, time changes. Now we have my future son-in-law, Kenny, my daughter, Catherine. There I am with Connie. There's my son, Brian, who's a Wall Street Journal reporter at the Washington Post. Washington Post reporter, Wall Street Journal reporter. And then my daughter-in-law is also shown here, Linda. And here we are. The odyssey continues. Here we are getting ready for an event at Case, and finally, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Connie and I strumming away. We have a lot to do. We have a great program. We have some of the best researchers at Case. We have amazing scientists, great clinicians, great clinical faculty, great leaders, and great leadership. So I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank the Weinbergers especially. I probably went way over my 10 minutes. Thank you, Dr. Keller. But I just wanted to show you what has happened. We have done great things together, and we have many great things yet to do in Cleveland. We're going to continue to explore, develop, and cure cancer. That's what I'm here to do. As I tell my fellows, my dream my dream, I don't know, is put a sign at my door, gone fishing. And I hope in my lifetime I see that happen. So thank you very much. I'll let Dr. Kirkland.
Thank you, Gary. That's a beautiful story. If you'll please join Stan, we are honored to present you with this chair as a symbol of the Peter and Laurie Weinberger Professorship. Congratulations. He's a little precocious. You know, I usually have a little spiel I talk about what you have to do to officially accept the chair, which is sit down in it, but he's already done that. That concludes our program for this evening. Thank you also very much for coming. There will be a reception in the lobby adjacent to the lecture room. And again, congratulations to Gary Schwartz, and make your way home safely this evening.